I'd be monogamous all the time. It's like once every like 6 months.
But you can't be transparent about that shit? Come on, dude. I've had 20 plus threesomes.
Like, that's probably not a girl you want to be with anyway.
Okay. I started waking up every day at 4 a.m. No drugs, no alcohol, nothing.
It was an identity crisis.
Massive. My dad died at a very young age. I never went to the grave. I never went to therapy. I never talked about it.
That's hard, though. But let's get back to the threesome. Our generation was like the degenerate generation that got everyone's body counts up.
I think you can achieve abundance without banging 100 women.
I want to have kids soon. I'm feeling it now, and I'm like, I'm ready. Let's do it. All right, Kyle Froonjian, a.k.a.
Yes.
Coach Kyle. Welcome to the pod. It's a clean one to get started, man.
Let's go, boy.
Now it's going to be a good conversation.
Yes, likewise. Good to see you in person, bro.
It's been a minute. We've known each other
3 years
like,
or so.
like
2-3 years,
an
right?
influencer relationship, like
Yeah.
messaging and stuff. We talked a little about the clothing brand a few years back, and it's good to meet you in person, man.
Yeah, I still rock that Edge
I
tank,
see
bro.
it. I see it. It makes me
People
happy.
asking me, yo, what is that shit? I'm like, yo, I need more of this shit, bro. You gotta stock that up.
That's how I know you've been blowing up recently too, because I've been getting more DMs. Hey, you seen this guy rocking Edge? I'm like, no, I have seen him. I know him. I know him. Hey, bro, we'll send you some more after this.
Let's go.
Because I see you're not wearing Edge today. We'll send you some more.
I didn't want to have to wear the rival. We won't say their name, but you gotta get this shit going.
So Froonjian, is that Dutch?
Armenian,
Ah,
yeah. All
okay.
Armenians have these like crazy last names, like Kardashian, Belzarian.
Jin.
Crazy name that ends in IAN. It's typically Armenian.
I thought it was. I guess some of those Dutch names have like the double O's, the OON.
Yeah,
I guess you wouldn't know. You're not Dutch, but
I don't know. I'm mainly Italian, so I don't even know.
Italian,
But yeah.
Italian Armenian. So you gotta tell me what's up, because
Let's talk, bro.
based on following your content, it seems like you moved to Miami 3 months ago. It seemed like before that you were in New Jersey. I don't know if you had a girlfriend. There was a girl that was in a lot of your content.
Yeah.
Now you're down in Miami. You got the Lambo. You're single again. What's the situation, man?
Oh shit. So yeah, that was my girlfriend. We were together for four years or so, and then I moved to Miami while I was still with her. And probably about a month into living here, we broke up. I mean, it wasn't like I moved to Miami and then I was so consumed by partying and nightlife that it broke us up. Honestly, like the relationship was already...
Did she move also?
She was going back and forth because I technically have a spot still in New Jersey. So she was going back and forth, and then at some point there was like a actual official breaking point. So that happened probably in March. So it's been about 3 months, yeah.
How's that been? It's tough.
The breakup itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean... That's the whole thing. I could turn that into a full podcast if you want me to, but I mean,
Well, it's fresh now. So like your 3 months breakup, you said
3 months breakup.
during the last couple months, I mean, I guess that happens a lot in relationship. Maybe I already kind of felt like it was coming to an end, or...
Yeah, I would say it definitely wasn't. It was definitely like the weakest the relationship had been, you know. And I think that also like moving out here kind of was added leverage, and there was space because she was flying back and forth, and that kind of like created extra distance, I feel like. So I mean, dude, it's very complicated because it wasn't a normal relationship to begin with. So it's funny that I was actually going out and partying and having more interaction with women and stuff like while I was in the relationship. I think like actually since the relationship ended, I've really pulled back on those things. So it's not like I moved to Miami. You know, from the outside, it might look like I moved to Miami, broke up with my girlfriend, copped a Lambo, and now I'm like this pickup artist that's just running the streets of Miami. Like that's what most people would assume. But ironically, it's literally the complete opposite. Like literally, since we broke up, I went super deep into self-development. Like I started waking up every day at 4 a.m. I removed all drugs, all alcohol. I went celibate. I hired a therapist. I took a relationship course on attachment styles. I've just been kind of doubling or more like quadrupling down on my own self. So it's actually anti-single life. It's been like super self-development, almost like, I guess, monk mode. I don't even know if that's like what they would call it. But so I've been going in the complete opposite direction, which has been a really eye-opening experience, honestly. There's a lot that has gone on in that, but again, I mean, I could turn that into a whole podcast if you wanted to.
Well, a couple questions. So you said it wasn't a normal monogamous relationship.
Right.
So was it like open? Was it just monogamous, but she understood for content and stuff? You do things? Like, what was the setup?
I would say there was different phases to the relationship because like when we first started hooking up, it was in the middle of COVID. So when we first started talking, I was just single running my pickup channel right? So then when we started actually hooking up, it was like an apocalyptic time where you couldn't even go to Target without it being like an ordeal, right? So I was living in my mom's basement still. The YouTube channel was already pretty viral. I was at like 100 plus.
This is New Jersey.
This is in New Jersey.
The lockdowns were a little more intense than like Florida or Texas.
Yeah, so I was still living with my mom. It was me and my mom, and I was living in her basement I had just started expanding the channel, so I was probably building the business up to about like I was probably at like 8K, 10K a month, still working a full-time job, and that's when we started hooking up. And I mean, dude, in New Jersey, you couldn't go anywhere. So it was literally just me and her and my mom in this house in a bubble for a good like 9 months. Pretty much the honeymoon phase of the relationship was in our house, aside from like going on like hikes and shit by ourselves. So that's how the relationship started. But at the same time, like I was still running a pickup channel. So it was interesting. She was
understanding of it. I mean, that's how my
but we weren't in a relationship.
Well.
We were kind of just hooking up. Because like she knew everything that was going on from the jump.
But it was like a hookup plus because you're spending so much time together, right?
Yeah, it was a hookup plus unintentional exclusivity due to COVID. Before I even go into that, I should actually lay some background, which is like what actually happened in my first relationship and me going into pickup, because the first girl I dated really destroyed me. Like she left me for another dude 5 years into the relationship on my birthday, and that was just like absolutely heart shattering, and I didn't know what the fuck to do. I spent a year trying to get her back. I was like super beta simp dude doing everything to try to get her back. And then I think eventually I kind of went, at some point I gave up on it, and then I dove really deep into pickup and red pill, not super red pilly, but pickup and self-development.
That's the arc I think most of us go through, right?
For sure.
The pain is what leads to change. Nothing changes without pain.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I was already aware of pickup in the last year or so of the relationship with that first girlfriend, but losing her and then trying to get her back and then ultimately not getting her back pushed all of that pain into like, I gotta really go hard with this shit. If I'm, not that I even wanted to be a coach, I just wanted to, I guess, get out of pain and really just get back to being a confident dude, because it was something I never had growing up. I was very antisocial. My dad died at a young age. I just played video games, smoking weed throughout teenage years. First girl I ever got with was that girl who became my girlfriend. She ends up leaving me. I'm back at fucking square one or even negative in the gutter at like 24 or 25.
Okay, and so obviously the pain of that kind of ultimately drove you to the large counter reaction to what's gotten you here.
Yeah.
But what just for guys who are in that tough spot, in that pain now, some people have the pain and don't use it for the counter reaction now also. Was there like a turning point or something that you heard, or like what made you maybe like fuck this?
Go harder with it?
Yeah, what made you like fuck this, I'm gonna get away from this and do everything I can?
I mean, I was already somewhat proactive about it. I think since my dad passed at a really young age, I learned growing up that anything I want to do, anything I want to learn, I can go out and have, the resources are all there. Whether it was like video games or me trying to learn basketball or me trying to be a rapper or me trying to...
But what made you apply it productively?
Right.
Because up until that, at least you were painting a picture that in the relationship, like I was a simp, I was trash. Like,
right. Well, so like I was already studying this stuff. I just couldn't go out and take action on it. I think the breakup itself was the catalyst for pushing me over the edge. It wasn't like I watched any one piece of content.
Okay.
And by the way, I still couldn't do it myself. Like I spent a year trying to do it, couldn't do it. Ultimately, I had to hire a coach. That's actually what really got me through it. I was broke as fuck. I was watching cold approach shit. I couldn't go out and approach.
Yeah.
After 9 months of watching it, one of the guys I followed was like, hey, we're doing this free student training. If you come to New York for the day, we'll put a microphone and a camera on you and we'll coach you for free. And then in return, we may use your footage.
Of course. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I don't got money, but I could go do that at least. So I said, let's do it. I took the bus to New York. They put a mic on me. They put a camera on me. And then they just proceeded to throw me into like 20 interactions that day, which was terrifying. But it got me over that initial hump. I got a taste of like, wow, I could actually somewhat do this. And then I spent another year struggling with it. And then the following year, I actually hired another coach. That's when I spent money at that point. I paid like $2K to do a 1-week boot camp in New York City with one of these dudes. And that was really transformative. I spent that whole week going out, really pushing myself. And then, man, the following year I did it again because I just still couldn't do it by myself, dude. So I needed the financial leverage along with the coaching, along with other dudes in the environment to kind of motivate me to like take that much action.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's what I didn't hire a coach at first, but it did take me meeting guys like Dave Perota and another group of guys who were also doing it. So it makes sense.
I didn't have that friend group either, though. So my friends were, I needed to go externally for it. So I did it that second year.
But what I'm saying is, though, it's still the same thing. Coach, no coach. I think obviously coach is like, you can control that. You can leverage that versus friends is like, you're kind of hoping, unless you can tap into some like community that exists already.
Where I was going with all of that was after the second year of the coaching and stuff, I had built up the skill set enough to the point where I was actually pretty confident. I could start going out and doing it, and it was very fulfilling. And I found myself being passionate about it to the point where I started wanting to help other dudes do it. I learned very quickly, most dudes don't want help with it. Me just trying to help my friends and shit, nobody wants to fucking help. And so that's when I ended up actually trying to work for one of those coaches. It didn't work out. He fired me, and then I decided I'm going to start a channel, right? And so I started to build this identity of this pickup guy, and I think a lot of it was created out of the pain from the previous identity that really got his heart shattered and was hopeless and really weak within the first relationship. So the way that this all comes together is that I feel like when I initially started my channel, it was I created this pickup identity of this dude who was good with women, and so I got very obsessed into that and built that up a lot, almost as a means of protecting the old identity, I would say.
Or like hiding. I know I think probably most people can relate, right? Where like you overcompensate because
100%.
Because inside of you, and it still happens to me. And I think okay, so it's a kind of a funny story, but like
bring it in.
I taught myself to backflip a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
And when I was starting, like the fear of like just sending the backflip, it was very similar to like the fear of like approaching a girl or something like that, right? And I went, got like a coach at like a gymnastics place. They helped me coach me through it. I learned it, and then I was doing it for a while. And then like a few weeks ago, I hadn't done it in a minute, and I was trying to do a backflip. I was like, "Fuck!" Like I'm afraid again.
Yeah.
And then I think because of this transformation that we make, part of me is like, no, there's this weakness inside of me, and I have to like beat this down. Like just crush this little bit of weakness that I found. Yep. And since then I've been kind of like obsessively doing backflips again. Yeah. And I think it's okay. It's being channeled productively, but also being self-aware. Yeah. Part of me is afraid, which I don't like to admit, but is afraid that like, oh wait, there is still a pussy bitch under there. Right, so I need to make sure that I'm taking steps to 100% to cover that. But I mean, life is this like internal battle, right? Yeah. And I think as long as you channel it productively, it's good. But also, ideally, you can get to a place where, like, if you have a weak moment, and in general, I would say, if I have a weak moment, I'm like, that was just a weak moment. That doesn't mean I'm a bitch again. For sure. But the backflip thing bothers me, man. Yeah. But
back to what you were saying about the overcompensating thing. It's like, that's really what happened. And I think the problem with the pickup and dating industry is that not only was I protecting the old identity, but it's like now you could actually go out, and if you're good enough, you could actually consistently get success with this thing, which, again, validates the identity. Plus, it's an experience I never had because I grew up very shy and antisocial. So it's all kind of confirming the new identity. And on top of that, I'm putting the value out into the world, and dudes are confirming the identity even more. And then I'm getting paid on top of it. So I built this identity that it's validating from a lot of women.
There's several layers of support.
Multiple. Yeah, it's like the whole life is intertwined into it.
You have the evidence. Yeah.
Right. So it really became this very big... I guess the word is identity, right? And so when I went into the relationship, this is how this all comes together, is that I had created this pickup identity guy who's the dude who can go out and be successful with picking up girls. And that's my purpose in life because it was a very painful thing I struggle with. And now I help men doing that, and it builds my status, and I get paid to do it simultaneously. So when I went into the relationship, I feel like there was a part of me that was always 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the relationship due to the fact that anytime we would get very close together...
It was an identity crisis.
Massive, as you can imagine, which is why it made sense that me and her were together, because also we moved very slow into the label of a relationship, like almost like 12 months. Not even just... It wasn't like she was begging and I was like, no. It was like kind of mutual. And then even in the first... The year following that, we would still go out and pick up girls together. So in my mind, it was kind of like Now I could be the dude who still gets to go out and pick up girls while I have the girlfriend. It's almost like even cooler. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It was maybe more motivated by supporting the identity than like what you actually wanted to do. Not that you actually didn't want to do it, but like I still got to do something to like.
I think it was me trying to find
my prowess a little bit.
It was that, and also maybe trying to find a happy medium, because like the relationship plus this kind of a thing.
Is this more sustainable for me?
Potentially, yeah. And I think if you would ask most dudes who are single or wanting to date or wanting to see multiple women and all this stuff, I would say like realistically, I don't think most of these dudes actually want multiple girlfriends or even understand what the fuck that entails. Like that is a massive thing that I think the red pill community or some of these other influencers kind of portray as like the ideal.
So how, and I appreciate you being really open and honest about this. A lot
Dude,
of people,
lay it on me, bro.
be.
We're just getting started. Let's go. let's get this shit out there.
Before we move on to the next phase of this journey,
yeah,
we did have a quick conversation before. And this is maybe a little bit unique to people who give dating advice, let's say, where they're not open about what their relationship is, and whether are they a player? Are they playing the field? Do they have a monogamous relationship? Or do they have something unique?
Right.
And I do see it with a little bit unsettling amount of guys, and I think. But now after having this conversation, the reason I bring it back up, I think a lot of it probably plays into the identity, right? Because they're like, well, I'm giving this advice. I am this player. And maybe I have this happy monogamous relationship, but I don't want to let people know about that because then they're not going to listen to me for this advice, or I don't have the same power over them.
Yeah.
Or I have seen it, and I'm not saying any names or any of this, but I have seen it where their girls, I've met them in person, their girls like really not attractive. And obviously that's going to reflect poorly on the business.
You can't be an influencer to men if you're not transparent. Like to me, that's bullshit. How are you going to be transparent in these other areas, claim you're so confident, so high value, so well disciplined, and understand that as the leader, I'm assuming responsibility for all of these people that are below me being influenced by me. But you can't be transparent about that shit? Come on, dude. What the fuck is that?
Yeah, I think I'm sure everyone has their reasons, and I'm sure they can be good reasons, but ultimately we're in a unique space, and you want to find someone who not just maybe has advice that sounds good, but like, oh, I would kind of like to like live that lifestyle, and it seems sustainable, you know, to like I could actually be happy in that lifestyle. Yeah,
I mean, I've seen all perspectives on it, and at the end of the day, your perspective is the reality. Like, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying dudes who want to be with multiple women are wrong or they're like egotistical. It's their perspective. But I do think if you desire something, you need to at least explore it. Like that's been my journey. If I look back in hindsight, anything that because I just don't want to be forced into something with resentment. Like I need to at least explore it in full to make a conclusion about the whole thing. And even if I was wrong, or even if my perspective changes around the whole thing, that doesn't mean other people are wrong on that, but I need the exploration for my own certainty.
Yeah, and I think most men will find, and I'm saying this A, because this is my experience, but B, because I have a lot of friends who has been their experience, and guys who I've coached has been their experience. Yeah. Guys want to have the player lifestyle, but as soon as they have it, I think they've proven it to themselves, and then now they want to be in a monogamous relationship, and that's what's going to make them happy, and that's what's going to work the best. That's been my, like, for the longest time, I had to keep proving it to myself. No, I need to date more women. I need to sleep with more women. And then all of a sudden I got to a point where I was like, personally, and I know some people that actually maybe is sustainable, I kind of question to the extent of which it is sustainable.
That's why they need to be more transparent, though. That's the bullshit right there. Like, is it or isn't it? It's not like, oh, a gentleman doesn't reveal his secrets. It's like, what the fuck, man? We got so many people watching you.
I think in the way that the world's set up and the way that society is founded and like the kind of fundamental values most of us have, that usually in 99% of cases, like a monogamous relationship that you're choosing with the right girl that is actually healthy. Yeah. Guys would prefer that to like having like oh, if I gotta text this, oh man, I gotta text, this girl's pissed off, bro. Like,
right. Yeah.
So what,
but I do think if they haven't had that kind of abundance or that experience, you're going into a relationship always wondering what if. And that will lead to resentment.
But that's the question, right?
Okay.
Because I've always agreed with you, and I think I still agree with you.
Okay.
However, so when people are arguing against hookup culture, and in general, especially in like the red pill space, they kind of argue against it for women, but not for men. And I do believe there are differences between the genders, 100%.
Right. Yeah.
However, I have also seen now, like, like on a biological level, when you like have sex and you orgasm and you're intimate with someone, like it releases oxytocin in your brain and it's like a bonding chemical. And like if you go through that experience 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 70, 100 times, but without it leading to a relationship, it can negatively affect the woman or the man's ability to like healthily pair bond. And now both of us have gone through a whole phase as a man.
Right.
So that wouldn't speak like positively on us. And it's easy for us to say it from the perspective of like, oh, like we had like the forbidden fruit, but like you shouldn't have it. So I think that it is genuine of us to tell guys, hey, it's probably going to take you going through a little bit of that phase and having a little abundance to make the choice. I just think there is an interesting argument against it that like, maybe not. Maybe
you don't ever need to do it.
Maybe you don't need abundance. Obviously, it's going to limit your options if you don't build yourself up.
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I think you can achieve abundance without banging 100 women. You know what I'm saying? So like
selection abundance almost.
I mean, full transparency, I have banged 100 women, so I don't know if that's necessarily. I guess I'm not in a qualified position to say that, but being a dude who has gone through that, I could see how a dude who just builds himself up, because a lot of those lays, honestly, was just me on some fucking horny dude who was in my 20s literally trying to get my lay count up.
Yes.
For the sole reason of trying to get my lay count up.
So the question is though, is that no, and I've been in that same spot, and I've had that same goal, and also we came up in an era because you're 34 also, right?
Yeah.
We're all 34.
Yeah.
Same age.
Yeah.
We came up in an era where like that's what was glorified through Hollywood, through dating advice, through like pickup artistry.
Right.
So that's all we knew.
Right.
Like our generation was like the degenerate generation that got everyone's body counts up, and we're a product of that. But like, is that gonna like kind of like fuck us and the girls that in our generation, like even, I mean, if it is, right? But I guess that's the question. Like, even though you had that and you're like in a healthy mindset now, and I know you're working on yourself, like, is it gonna fuck you a little bit? And is it fucking me a little bit?
Yeah, but I don't regret any of my experiences up to this point. Like, I wouldn't take back any of it. I do think I'm maybe in a tiny percentage of people who could go through that and fully detach from it later on. Actually, I wouldn't even say I'm fully. That's like trying to claim I'm like on some enlightened shit. I'm not, but like I don't know many people who have experienced everything I have and then have pulled back on all of that to go completely celibate and be on no drugs, no alcohol, nothing for an extended period of time. So it's hard to say. Like it's kind of like this. Thing that we can only like
keep
speculate.
us posted. You'll keep us posted.
Yeah, but one thing I will say though is that after going through the last 2 to 3 months of just celibacy and removing all of those things, it brings a lot of awareness to yourself and allows you to detach from a lot of the, I guess, driving factors that push you to want to do those things. But again, I do think you need to, at least to some extent, explore them first. To just completely resist the temptation altogether throughout your whole life, I think for most dudes that would always, at least me, that would lead to me always wondering what if. And that's kind of what I experienced in my very first relationship was like, I found the girl of my dreams too early and I haven't been with anybody and I haven't even really dove into my self-development journey. So as it was building up, there was this wonder of what if. I couldn't commit long term, like in terms of marriage. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that, bro. But
it's a deep topic with a lot of different factors.
But it's good. Like people need to hear this shit because it's not talked about.
And nothing's black and white either, right?
Yeah.
Like me and you we don't know. I don't know. And I'm saying that as a married man also, that maybe that past plays a negative role in some tendencies that I have that I don't know. But again, we're going to have to keep talking about what we don't know.
The one thing I will say is that regardless of where you're at on the spectrum as a dude, if you're watching this, I think what's most important is just doing a lot of self-reflection, whether that's either therapy or studying or like, I'm fortunate enough that I run a lot of live calls every single week, so I'm constantly talking about my experiences. And on top of that, I've done therapy, and on top of that, I've done a lot of research. So you need to have some level of self-awareness as to what are the reasons that you're chasing after the things you're chasing after. What experiences have you had in your life, good or bad, traumatic, whatever, that have shaped you into the dude you are? And how does that have influence on like what you're chasing right now, especially when it comes to long-term mating and stuff like that, like your love and your partner and your love languages, it's all tied back into your trauma and the shit you've experienced through your life.
100%. 100%. I talk about it a lot in my audience, but like my feeling like I was a failure in high school because I lost my confidence in the basketball team. That led me down like a dark path for years until I had some awareness that, hey, because my high school coach was hard on me and then I was always afraid of fucking up and failing, that like trickled into every other area of my life. And then once I was aware of it, it didn't magically solve it, but it made it a lot easier to manage, knowing kind of like, oh, that was the origin. And before that, I had this carefree, youthful, confident, natural attitude that I think most of us are born with and we have when we're children. And I think that's actually a good thing for it to ask ourselves, like, at what point in your life did you lose that natural, like, charisma, like curiosity, and like carefree nature for life? Because the moment you lost that was probably the moment some type of trauma happened that's led you down this weird path that we've all been torturing ourselves on. Yeah.
Very well said.
So what was we don't have to go too much on your relationship. I don't want that to be the whole
I don't care, dude. I really think people need to hear more of this shit.
And it's also, we're able to extract different lessons and angles from it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what led to it ending?
I think the year after that, I noticed.
So this is like 2022, 23?
Yeah. I was kind of pushing more towards the idea of I want to start going out more alone, because I felt like I was getting to some extent compliant in the relationship. And
what do you mean compliant?
Complacent?
Complacent.
Yeah, okay. Complacent, sorry. Complacent in the relationship. And then, lost train of thought. Yeah, I was getting complacent in the relationship, and I know what it was.
Okay, but even with the complacency in the relationship, what do you mean?
I guess like I just wasn't pushing myself. It's not even in the relationship. I think I just got comfy. Like my business was probably doing about 40 to 50K a month on autopilot. I had a hot girl. I had the content pretty much on autopilot. The clients were all doing good. And so I feel like I had hit a level that was way above the lower levels I had been at previously. So it was good. And I just got comfy at that level. Because like if you look at all of it on paper, it's a pretty fulfilling life. But once you experience it, and I don't know, I stopped trying to push myself physically, financially. I stopped putting effort into the relationship. I was kind of just cruising. I was drinking every weekend. I was smoking weed on the weekends too. I was doing a lot of shit that like was not good for growth.
Okay.
Right. So I think all of those things were happening. And when you're already in low frequency shit consistently, it leads to fucking boredom and worse decisions and bad thought loops. And essentially what I was thinking at the time was, this relationship is preventing me from going out and being single and interacting with women. So as a result of that, I'm not actually still working on the skill set. And as a result of that, I don't feel as fueled up within the business. And as a result of that, I'm not making that much money, or I don't have that much drive to do any of this. Conclusion, I should be single, or I should be able to go out more. Right? So I wanted to start going out more, even though we were still together. And anytime we would argue, I would just kind of push it away and start to see like grass is greener on the other side type thing.
Okay, so I have a couple thoughts here.
Yeah.
One is that I know you're painting a negative picture of complacency, but can you argue that's like a good thing? You're in a good spot in your relationship, your finances are in a good spot, you have some free time to obviously not do a bunch of degenerate things with it, but you have some free time. Well, you want to have a couple drinks here, you want to do this here, that's something guys should aim for?
Yeah, I do. If you're not even at that level, then absolutely. There's just different levels to it, you know?
Well, so how did you put your finger on...
Well, I'm not saying I had the right mindset back then. I'm saying I was kind of the wrong mindset.
Okay.
Yeah,
like in your mind, me being single will fix all of this.
Yeah, it was
at that moment.
Yeah, so I actually have a dismissive avoidant attachment style, which essentially means anytime that I get triggered, I just want to get away from the person that's triggering that negative effect on me. Mm-hmm. It's because my dad died at a very young age. When my dad died, I never went to the grave. I never went to therapy. I never talked about it. I just literally buried the fucking pain and acted like nothing happened. Right? My sister never cried about she never cried, not even at the funeral. I never talked about the whole thing. So at a very young age, I cultivated a skill set of being able to take an emotion and just compartmentalize it off to the side. Right? And so that's what dismissive avoidants are very good at doing. They can just, if someone's causing a trigger and they do get triggered, they want to be dismissive and avoid the situation altogether.
So how was she triggering you in that moment?
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways I would get triggered, but a lot of, when you're 3+ years into a relationship, small shit will trigger you if you're not aware. Like literally just her talking a certain way with a certain tonality or some kind of small shit, like not like I was even...
Like she says something with the tones like that was a little disrespectful, like fuck you or something.
Yeah, I don't even know exactly,
Okay.
but like just small things that you really shouldn't be getting triggered on. And if anything, they should just be communicated within the relationship from a non-emotional standpoint where you guys could actually have a healthy conversation about boundaries.
When you just said that right there, it kind of made me feel like this. Can you maybe just reword that in the future? Something like that.
For sure. Okay. But if you don't know what you're doing in a relationship and those small things happen collectively and compounding over 1, 2, 3 years, there will be a lot of bad toxic behaviors within the relationship.
Because you're not addressing them as they happen.
For sure. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And especially me, like honestly, I was on more of some toxic masculinity shit for the first two years of the relationship kind of a thing. Like, I'm going to keep going out doing pickup. You shouldn't be talking to other dudes type thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So that already starts a power dynamic. And then when it's not that you can't make that type of relationship work, but understand that when you're in that type of relationship, the small arguments, the emotions will bleed out into these other areas of confrontation.
Because I know a lot of guys who have tried to make this work, some that still try and make it work.
Right.
I've never seen any proof of it being pulled off well. I've seen proof of it working and like being, I don't want to say forced, but I've seen proof.
Tolerated,
proof where like the boundaries are set, it's tolerated, like that's the dynamic.
Yeah.
But I never see it without like the woman being upset about it the whole time. And like you said, it's going to come through in other arguments. It's like,
that's what
in their mind, they're like, well, okay, I accepted this. Deep down, I'm not happy with this. So then when he does a small thing that I can get mad about, well, I have all this anxious energy. So like, fuck you for doing that.
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. And then so as those things happen and you're already in this power dynamic, you almost feel more compelled to try to put the girl back in her place. And especially me, someone who's in a dismissive avoidant, will literally just be trying to eject out of the environment consistently. Yeah. And she's actually anxious attachment style, which is the opposite, meaning I'm trying to get away. She wants to cling. So it creates anxious attachment plus dismissive avoidant.
That's the classic relationship.
Yeah, it's a classic relationship. That's going to go to shit, honestly, unless you know how to handle it all. But so that was happening. And then how did I get on the topic of dismissive avoidant?
Well, I guess you've become aware of this now, but you've still decided not to be in that relationship.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just explaining all the flaws that were going on within the relationship, as well as just within myself.
But what ultimately was like because I see like there being maybe not the most stable. There's a little shaky foundation. It's working, but there's a little shaky foundation.
Shaky foundation. It was working, and then, I mean, the thing is, she was even willing to stay through this and try to make it work, like through the whole thing, through me. It's one thing to do a relationship that we're talking about here. It's a whole nother thing to publicly promote this lifestyle and be transparent about it on YouTube, on social media, when everybody, all the friends watch me, the family knows about my YouTube channel. I'm talking about all of this shit fucking publicly.
Yep.
We're talking about magnitudes higher. It's one thing if, maybe that's why most dudes that we're talking about just don't talk about it publicly. I'm going through the whole fucking thing. And yeah, despite all of that, despite me posting infields while we're in a relationship, while we're doing all this stuff, she was still down to try to make it work.
But there is something to be said about if someone's hiding something publicly, even if there's a justification for it, there's still some degree of shame involved with like whenever you're hiding anything from people.
That's why That's why we're doing this podcast right now, bro. It's like, in my opinion, it's got to be out all the way out in the open.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Even if you're not a person of like influence on YouTube, I think it still needs to be out in the open. Like otherwise you're just hiding some shit one way or another. It's going to lead to imploding no matter what. So anyway, all of that was going on. And then I think by the time year 3, year 4 of the relationship, and with me moving out to Miami, those concepts continued to get more and more exaggerated. I stopped putting attention into the love of the relationship, giving her the emotional support she needed.
That's hard though. I'm saying this, I've been with my girl 7 years.
Yeah.
When you're well, I feel like it's like when you're a man, there's like, I'm like really like framing it as an excuse. We're all trying to be real self-aware here.
Yeah.
But I do find that it's difficult when I'm also trying to like build building business is difficult, you know. It's difficult.
Sure.
Doing content's difficult.
For sure.
It becomes very easy to deprioritize like doing caring things for the wife or for the girl because like there's no urgency there kind of by definition.
Yep.
But that's a very dangerous thing because it needs to be done. It doesn't need to be done now. Like this podcast needs to be done now, but it does need to be done. And it's tough because there's always a burning ship to save in this world. And it's something I still struggle, just to open up about that too. Like that's not something that that's one of my biggest weaknesses, probably my biggest weakness in the relationship is that from time to time, I know that she can feel, maybe neglected. I don't want to say neglected. It sounds, not prioritized is maybe a more accurate. Yeah.
For sure.
Something I'm working on.
That's tough, dude. There's always, I have a massive backlog of shit that will forever be growing on my list of things that need to get done.
All day in my head is like this, and then I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, and you really got to be able to prioritize just completely detaching from the business and giving the girl, to some extent, some kind of emotional connection, care, love, whatever the thing is that the relationship might be missing. And so I was really not prioritizing that. And with all of these other elements just on top of that we're talking about got thrown into the mix, it just created more and more separation. I created this crazy story in my head. And I think towards the beginning of this year, it's when we actually started like fighting more. And then at some point while she was gone, it was one night where I was out and I ended up like hooking up with some girl. And we were very open about all of that too.
Yep.
Because again, if you're going to try to do that, well, understand like you're going to need to be open about the whole thing, which is not easy either.
Yeah.
And so
I think that's a key though, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna do it, maybe it's not sustainable, but if you're gonna do it, be honest. If not, you're kind of a scumbag.
Right. And honestly, at that point, I just felt like in hindsight, I was almost trying to detach from the relationship, but I was being a pussy. I couldn't just have the conversation because I was 4 years into this whole thing. And when you grow that long with somebody, like even if you actually evolve as a dude, there's still this some level of the old identity that's intertwined. If you've ever like grew up with friends and you outgrow them, there's still somewhat of that old identity in there. And I think unconsciously I was like almost forcing her to break up with me because I just couldn't, I guess, pull the trigger on the whole thing. And so like she ended up saying we need a break. I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so I spent the next 2 weeks just being out here and lived like the single life. I didn't have the Lambo yet, but I was living, I had everything but the Lambo. And so I was living that life. And then, I would say over the next month, everything was fine, which is what will happen with dismissive avoidance. You actually get the space and everything will be completely fine because you could go through the breakup and still compartmentalize all of the, I wasn't in heartbreak, crying, simping, begging, nothing. I was chilling.
Yeah.
Literally, I was in a relationship course at the time, and I was telling the woman, I was like, I feel like I should be grieving. Like, I haven't even cried once since the breakup ended. I haven't even cried once. Like, you would think, like, that's not healthy. You know what I'm saying? For a 4-year relationship to end, that's not healthy. And she was like, give it time, let the feelings kind of process. Dismissive avoidance may take, like, multiple months. And so, after about a month, I started feeling worse and worse about the breakup happening. And that's when I started diving deeper into self-reflection. What did I do wrong? Removed all the drugs, all the alcohol, all the vices, everything, and also I stopped. I stopped going out at night because of the wake up time that I'm hitting. I'm hitting 4 a.m. wake up time, and I'm not like these crazy dudes who like go to bed at midnight either. Like I need at least 6-7 hours of sleep. Until maybe I get on TRT. I heard that shit can help, but I don't know. You can give me some thoughts on that.
I still need 7 hours, man.
Still need 7? Okay.
Still need 7.
That's disappointing to hear. But so I started doing all of these things and I went celibate and I hired the therapist. And don't get me wrong, I still go out every single day and go up to girls during the daytime. I'm very big on pushing yourself socially. So every day I go out for at least an hour to get my steps in. I try to interact with the entire world. I still think it's very important as a dude to be interacting with the world and pushing yourself socially because that one concept was very transformative in my journey. And it's a big proponent of what I teach to clients. So like, I'm not going to be some dude who's telling you to go out and push yourself socially while I'm sitting home fucking chilling. Like, I think that's crazy. But also, I think it's healthy because now that I'm celibate and I've detached from wanting the validation or wanting the sexual validation or any of that, it's creating this really interesting perspective of interacting with people. One of the biggest things I've realized from coming to Miami and going out every single day is, dude, I'm actually not attracted to like 99.9% of women sexually as I thought I was. When you actually detach from the validation side of things, and I'm just kind of looking around and I see these girls, initially I do think a lot of them are attractive, but then when I actually go up and have a conversation, I start to realize like, well, it's not just about getting the lay. It's not just about getting the lay count. When you take the idea of the validation and the lay count out of the whole thing, you start to interact with people from a way different perspective of just trying to appreciate their actual beauty and their personality. And a lot of the times you'll realize that, like, at least what I'm realizing is I don't actually click with a lot of these people, nor do I want to mate with these people or be in relationships with these people, with these women. And so I do think it's very important to continue to go out, push yourself socially as a dude, especially if you don't have the skill set down. Especially, and it's not just for cold approach. Like this, I'm so big on it because if you try to go outside and talk to someone, you're going to notice that very quickly your brain is going to tell you all the reasons to not go up and talk to that person. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're going to be worried about rejection. You're going to be worried about how they judge you. You're going to be talking yourself out of it so much. And by going up and doing that, I think on a daily basis, it, one, desensitizes you to rejection, not just with women, but with the world. So many people are living in this reality of they're afraid of judgment of other people. Right. And so I think it really strengthens that. It gives you social confidence. It shows you how to interact with the world. If you want to level up as a dude and end up connecting with high level dudes or date your dream girl, it's a absolute necessary skill set. So I'm really big on doing that every single day.
I do think you bring up an interesting point that in the past, I would just, hook up with a girl because I thought she was attractive. And there is some validation there.
Yeah.
I think if I was single now, and a rule that I'd advise to guys who are single is like only pursue sleeping with a girl, A, if you're physically attracted to her, but B, if you actually fucking like her, which I don't think many guys think about. I don't think many guys think about that. I think, and that's hard to think about because when you're on a date with an attractive girl,
right,
the underlying need for the validation, the sexual release, I think that usually consumes
so back to
us.
a question for you, because back to what our previous points were, it's like, well, what if you haven't actually explored that yet?
What do you mean?
Like, what if he's, because my thought is like, I think there's different phases to a man's life in terms of these kinds of experiences. Like, what if it's a dude who hasn't actually experienced that much and he wants to literally just get more sexual experience, even if he's not like wanting to date that girl long term, but he doesn't have the confidence to get his dream girl, and maybe part of him will feel more confident if he actually got more experience.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. I don't know how important sexual experience is. I think that guys need some.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you slept with a couple girls who've essentially validated that you're not a complete like loser in the bedroom, and you're like aware of general principles of like being a little bit more dominant as the man, I think that satisfies a baseline need. Like if a girl, assuming you're not like completely clueless about like what to do, and again you're adhering to like basic principles of being dominant, I don't think that any girl is going to. Or let's put it this way: if a girl did fall to you for not being some like sexual like maestro,
right,
that goes probably for the streets. Like that's probably not a girl you want to be with anyway.
Okay, valid point.
That'd be my. I mean, I don't think that in the past I would think that it would be a big flex to be like, oh, that girl doesn't like me that much, but I like give her such good sex and she keeps coming back for more. At this point, to me, that'd be like, why am I spending my time with a girl who would think about me like that? You know what I mean? Like who would only appreciate me for the bedroom, which I don't know that the girls think about that way as much as guys would think about that way, but. Yeah, that would be my perspective.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, again, I was the dude that felt the need to bang a lot of women.
So was I.
As a means of validating the identity or kind of proving it to myself. But it's like, in hindsight, was that actually necessary? Or was that just literally out of insecurity?
I mean, I think it was necessary. But my point is, I don't think it was necessary for us to do it 50, 100 times. I think at some point that was just overcompensating. So
just some level of sexual conquest.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that is like that's where we were getting our validation from. So we had to keep doing it to keep getting that source of validation. Because like if you do it 10 times and like that's now where you're getting your validation from, and you just stop and you don't really, you're not drawing that from other things you're doing and creating in your life, then
for sure,
of course you got to keep doing it to keep feeling enough, right?
Right. And that's why, so it's like if you're drinking a lot and smoking a lot and doing all these things and you live for the weekend and that is the highlight of the weekend, I mean, that's going to become the reality of like how you do get validated, you know? So one thing I've noticed by completely pulling back on all of these things and really just doubling down on my routine, my self-development, my business, my content, my clients, and telling myself I'm going to do certain things every single day and they're just non-negotiable, that's becoming the validating thing for me over time. As I continue to do my morning reflection, midday check-in, making the content, seeing the success from the clients, and trying to deliver as much value as possible to the world, I feel accomplished at the end of the day, to the point where I do feel validated from a lot of those things versus kind of living in this other paradigm of living for the weekend, putting substances into your body to get into a certain state, to hit certain levels of external validation and feeling good that way.
Yeah, you want to put your validation in things that you have control over, and so you can self-validate. I mean, is what I believe. So, all this being said, we got the full...
So why did the relationship end?
No, all of you. We got the full backstory of this. What's your end game now? Like, what do you think you're like? What's the? And I'm not saying like next week, but
right.
What do you think?
It's interesting because I've had a lot of thoughts since the relationship ended that all the things that I've kind of removed were the causes to the end of the relationship. So I've had these thoughts of like, could the relationship actually work at this point? And I can't help but think that it would, but at the same time, I also know that a 4-year relationship that just ended like 3 months ago at this point, I'm in like zero rush to even try to rekindle things. Like I actually told myself, no matter what, I'm doing a full year of just like not trying to like push back into a relationship and actually
just because like it's too soon, and like even with everything it's still likely you could fall back into the same patterns with that short of a time frame.
That, but also just understanding that like your emotions aren't, they're temporary, you know? So it's like, just because I think a lot of dudes will act impulsively out of an emotion that they're feeling for a week, maybe even a month.
Even 3 months.
Even 3 months, yeah. I mean, if I just look back 3 months ago versus 2 months ago versus 1 month ago, it's like my emotions have been changing every single month. So it's like, it's also out of care for her, because at the same time, I don't want to fucking just jump back into something because I'm feeling like I made a mistake and I'm healed. My biggest fear is getting back into it, and then 6 months in, I'm like, I'm right back in the fucking same fucking
you can't do
position.
That to her. Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, and then I brought her back into the whole thing too. So like, no matter what, I'm doing a year. Minimum a year. I was talking to my therapist about this too. Even the relationship coach was like, I think 6 months is good. And I was like, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see where we're at in 6 to 12 months, but that's kind of where it's at in terms of the relationship, in terms of my own journey with this thing. I'm not saying I'm going to be celibate for the year, but I'm definitely pulled back on all of that stuff. If I meet a girl and the connection makes sense, and it's been a while and I want to do it, I feel compelled to do it from a healthy place that's not validating me whatsoever, I'm open to exploring it. It may actually be healthy to have a couple of those, or at least one of them, before even making a bigger conclusion too about the relationship. I don't know. I'm kind of open-minded to see where that goes, but that's kind of where I'm at with that. In terms of end game, do you mean relationship-wise, or what are you referring to? Or just my goals, or like, what do you mean?
It's a good question.
Like, there's a lot in there.
Yeah, no, it could mean a lot. Let's start relationship wise. Like where do you see yourself?
I think long term,
settling down with a girl. Do you not like? Yeah,
I think long term, what I probably would want, and again, my perspective has changed consistently on this. So I can't.
You gonna be doing the Miami Lambo single life?
I don't even know if I want to stay in Miami, honestly. I'm like 3-4 months in here. It's interesting. It's not what I expected.
Let's go in game and let's talk Miami, because I'm curious about that.
Okay. Yeah. So I would say, at least where I'm at right now, what I think would make the most sense would be a long-term relationship with a woman who potentially, occasionally would be open to a threesome. But again, that wouldn't be because I want the threesome. I think... And someone might even say that even just the fact that I would potentially want that door cracked open isn't healthy either. But
yeah, I would say that if you're trying to, from an external perspective, like if you're trying to optimize for it to be the right girl with the right values, the right chemistry with you, the right alignment in terms of what you want for your life, but then also adding the caveat also want to be open for threesomes from time to time. Obviously, you would limit the pool to a very extreme extent.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And that's okay. I don't know if it's necessarily a deal breaker. I'm not closed.
You may have to sacrifice other things for that.
I'm not closed off to the idea of monogamy either, though. I'm really not. I think actually the further I go into this thing, the more I see that there's a lot of healthy things that are necessary, like in terms of monogamy. That's just like, man, it's such a deep topic in itself. So I'm glad we're talking about all this shit, you know? So I would say like, I guess my perspective has just been changing so much. It's hard for me to make an end game conclusion about this because I'm just optimistic that no matter what ends up being the end game, it's going to be the right decision for me, and I'll be happy. All right. And so like, I'm just open to going down this path with zero judgment and just kind of like letting it take its course.
Okay.
You know, as long as I'm taking the right actions and I'm doing my shit, I'll end up in a good place.
Okay.
Right.
So you don't really have a
I would say it's either most likely it's going to be either monogamy or. I mean, is that monogamy if it's just me and her and then occasionally like once a year or some shit we have a threesome? I don't know. I guess it's not monogamy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck that is.
I would say that's a funny thing to hear you say that. It's like, bro, that's like such a small but look, I'm married, right? So I've been monogamous the last 7 years.
Right.
And of course, I see attractive women and I have impulses and reactions to it, but it's been a small sacrifice to make in the grand scheme of things. But even like you're saying, and I think most guys would say something similar, like, no, I'd be monogamous all the time, just like once every like 6 months maybe. And it's like, well, bro, like, that's a pretty small sacrifice to make. That like once every 6 months you don't get to like orgasm after being with a different girl than your girl.
For sure, yeah. Again, I'm confident, dude. I've been straight celibate. I'm confident I could be monogamous. It's not like I need a threesome to not be monogamous. I've shown myself enough evidence that I'm fully capable of doing that. I've had 20 plus threesomes, so I just know that, like, hypothetically, if I were to make that work, and like once a year when we're going out to have fun, and she's the one bringing up the idea of wanting to do it, and I'd be like, you know what, fuck it. It's like a fun experience. I think it does add a nice touch to things, but I'm open to the idea of monogamy too.
Yeah.
So that's I guess for a relationship and end goals, either monogamy or that one off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
In terms of like the end game for the business, right now your main business is your dating coaching, right? Or like men's coaching.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much only business.
And that seems like that's gone very well. That's grown quite a bit. So is the end game just to continue growing that? I know I've heard you recently say you're trying to make it work more just from straight like organic content versus maybe relying on paid ads or like more intense marketing setups.
Yeah, I mean, still haven't been able to crack paid ads. I haven't put that much time into it because I've realized over the last year or so, I haven't even been going all out on the things that we're working with in the business. So I'm really just trying to max out organic. But by max out, I mean like really, really max out organic. So that's what the focus is for in terms of financial and scaling the business up. I would say aside from that though, yeah, I noticed as I continue to evolve, the teaching kind of continues to evolve too. So like I do still bring in a lot of dudes to my channel under the premise of I'm struggling with women. Mm-hmm. And as dudes go deeper and deeper into my program, I think they even themselves start to realize that this is deeper than just like pickup lines and flirting techniques. Like if you actually want to get the girl and more importantly, keep the girl, you do need to have all of these other pillars in place and also just to live a fulfilling life as a dude. So it's like, yeah, I think maybe some of my best performing videos that have the highest reach are either pickup videos or like conversation techniques or flirting techniques. And that draws dudes in. And then once they're kind of in my ecosphere, I think is the word, I can then kind of mold them based on what I'm teaching or what I'm going through. And a lot of that lately has been mindset, action, consistency, discipline. And that bleeds off into your diet, your fitness, your physique, your business, your self-worth, like self-talk, which all is going to result in you getting a more attractive partner at the end of the day and being able to keep her because you're happy with your actions and your daily habits and the life you're living. So you don't turn to all these drugs and alcohol and validation seeking behaviors that ultimately lead to toxic behaviors and downfalls in the relationship anyway. So it kind of all goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah. So there's a lot in there too.
All right. So Miami, here in Miami, beautiful place. Like we both grew up in the cold slightly depressing Northeast.
Where'd you grow up?
Just south of Boston.
Okay.
So you're New Jersey.
Yeah.
I'm south of
So
Boston.
it was colder by you, yeah.
It's a bit colder by me even.
Yeah.
It's still pretty bad where you're at. It's still about the same.
Yeah, winter can be bad for sure, yeah.
So since then, I've moved to Texas, to Spain, back to Texas for now. I've considered moving to Florida because it's beautiful and I like the weather.
Yeah.
Obviously, no additional state income tax here. Property taxes here are lower than in Texas, which would be nice also. Mm-hmm. What have been your thoughts? I know it's only been 3 months, and I know you're living like downtown in the middle of Brickell, where it's like in the middle of the action. But how's it been?
It's been good, for sure. I like Miami. I don't know if I could go back to New Jersey. I think ideally, I just don't know if I would be here full time. Like, I think ideal scenario is like I have a place here and I have a place somewhere else. Like, whether that's New York or somewhere else, I don't know. But I like the idea of being able to bounce. Just because, like, it's a certain life here, you know? And I don't know if, again, maybe it's just very new to me still.
Yeah.
And, you know, after 9 to 12 months, it might just become home kind of a thing. I don't know, but I'm not getting that vibe. I enjoy it. I remember the first 2 months, I felt like I was on vacation every day.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of becoming more normalized to me. And I do feel like I'm in a very attractive crowd, a lot of networking opportunities. I've networked with more people in the last 2 months than I have my entire career of having YouTube back in New Jersey. So in terms of the business, networking, meeting attractive people, feeling motivated to level up your physique and your career, your finances, your living situation, I think this is a great place to do that shit. Like, very, very influential in those aspects. Yeah. Dude, in New Jersey, in the winter, everybody's got hoodies on. There's no incentive to go outside. There's nobody to really network with.
The sun sets at like 4 p.m. if it's like Boston, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, 4:30, yeah. In the wintertime, for sure. So everybody's in night mode. They don't have that out here. You go outside, there's a Lambo driving by. Not that you need to get lost in material things. And I mean, that's another interesting concept. Having me just bought a Lamborghini too. Like, I'm not really one for obsessing over Lambos and material things either. So it's like, it's influential in a sense that, hey, there's a lot of people here that are leveling up. I think like 10% of Miami is millionaires. I'm pretty sure, something like that. I saw a stat. And so you're around a lot of money, a lot of networking, which is great, I think. I don't know about long term, but I tell guys, like, if you're in the middle of fucking nowhere, if you're growing up in a cornfield, or you're just in a place where it's like not influential to you hitting your goals, like, long term, you should be relocating. And you were talking about the idea of having like a social circle or having dudes in your environment that could push you into certain things when it came to like pickup or even networking. But, you know, do that however you can where you're living right now. But long term, you should be trying to relocate to the places that are going to be the most advantageous.
Yeah, you got to give yourself a chance, right?
Yeah.
Because I grew up in Boston, south of Boston, and like the suburbs. I lived in Boston, at least after college. So that allowed me to meet guys like Dave and have like a group of guys. Now in Boston, probably like in New Jersey, there's still very few of those people. It's a more traditional minded place in the Northeast where most people are trying to be like a doctor, a lawyer, a professor.
Right.
So I really wasn't connecting with people.
Right.
And I still created the foundation for the YouTube channel there. But when I went from Boston down to Austin, A, it was nicer weather. I could film more, but B, Austin has a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot more people who would think what I was doing was cool. I connected with more people. Mm-hmm. You know, we got Pat here who's helping out with a lot of the video stuff. In Houston, I made friends with a lot of the guys who, like that Alpha Elite, you know, Max Chun and Christian, all those guys. And
You met all of them in Austin?
Well, Austin or Houston. Once I moved down, once I left Boston. So even though I set the foundation of Boston, once I put myself in an environment that had more opportunities around, immediately the following... Don't worry about it. It's the other one I'm going to do.
Okay.
Fuck that camera.
Yeah, it's all good. Once you moved out of Boston.
Immediately the following, the business income, because also your eyes just get opened up that, there's actually not the ceiling that I thought was here. Actually, the ceiling's like, I can't even see the ceiling. So like, I do think, guys, you have to give yourself a chance. Now, of course, the fastest thing to do is to join like I recently created Beast Nation, which is like an online community. I started it this year. Cool. And that's, if you don't have people around you, like that's an immediate change that you can make. Something doesn't have to be that, something like that, right? Because at least you're now interacting with other guys. Maybe you're getting some coaching online also, and that can help. But I do think long term, if you want to give yourself the best chance, And I wouldn't even say long term. I say maybe this is more like medium term. You should be planning, hey, where's somewhere I can move? At least the closest city to me, so that I like there's at least some people around versus being out like in the sticks.
For sure.
But and I always tell guys, you can always move back. You know, like
Worst case scenario, you go back.
The same way when I quit my first job, I said, look, I can always go back to I was doing software engineering. I was like, I can always go back. I can always go back to that. When I left Boston, I was like, I can always go back. You can always go back to your comfort zone. You can leave it. You can always come back.
There's always a story that we tell ourselves as to why we shouldn't do the thing. Yeah. And even myself, it took me 3 years to get my ass to Miami. I had my computer, the software on my team, the logins were Miami 2021. So in 2020, we were fucking plotting to come to Miami. And then it was Miami 2022 was the new password. And then it was Miami 2023 was the new password. And I was like, when am I going to actually pull the trigger on this thing? I had every reason to come out here years ago, and I was still hesitant to do it. Like I had the financials, I had everything. I just had this story of why I'm okay where I'm living. But guys, like take a fucking chance, because even though I've been here for 4 months and it's awesome and I regret not doing it earlier, yeah, I could go back to New Jersey right now. There's no reason you got to just take that leap of faith and understand you could always fall back on the thing, you know? But take those opportunities, like massive opportunities for growth that you can't experience in your hometown, you know?
No, it's true. It's that's one. I don't think I know. There are some outliers, but basically every like millionaire plus I know does not live where they grew up. Yeah, basically every single one.
You're just making it more difficult to not do that.
Oh, unless if you grew up in Miami or
if you're already in a major city, then great. But also, like, is that city advantageous to like what you're trying to do? You were near Boston, and it's like it just didn't align.
No, I was still in a city, and I still. It allowed the content, because if I was trying to do the content not even in Boston, I was trying to do it in Hingham where I grew up, which is again a suburb, like it would have been even harder. Getting to Boston, like getting to your closest city is probably like bare minimum. Yeah. Because any city that has, over, I don't know, 500,000 people kind of living around it probably is going to have enough opportunity to like, that it shouldn't be an excuse. But yeah, of course, if you're like trying to do YouTube content, somewhere like Miami where you can film year round is going to be a lot more advantageous than living up in Boston or New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's going to be a huge difference. So if you're talking to a guy right now who's trying to improve,
yeah,
what would you tell him the number one thing? Like if you could just talk to him for the next 60 seconds, what would you tell him?
What does he want to improve on though?
He's just like a guy who's just found our content, your content or my content. He just kind of wants more. Yeah, he's the pain point of like not having the type of women in his life. He's not making the money he wants. Yeah. And maybe it's not even advice, but if you just had a message for him for like 60 seconds, what would you tell him? If you could only talk to him for 60 seconds, then you could never communicate with him again.
I can never communicate with ever again. What advice would I have for a dude like that? I mean, in 60 seconds, it's almost everything we've already been saying, which is like, it's environment, it's the people you're talking to, it's the mentors, it's the content you're consuming, and it's your thought process, and it's the actions you're taking on a daily basis, right? So shit environment, shit social circle, shit self-talk, bad actions, bad vices and behaviors, you're going to stay negative. So I would tell him, dude, you need to do an evaluation of your life right now. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? What are the bad things you're doing right now that are holding you back? And what are the things you should be doubling down on? Figure those things out. Have an uncomfortable conversation with yourself. And whatever those things are, you now have all the resources as a dude. You have all the fucking resources to go out and seek guidance, whether it's free guidance or paid guidance in all of those areas. You can go to environments where there's people doing those things. You can pay people. You can go to join the Beastly group if you need to. But get around the environments and the people that can help you with those individual elements. If it's not me, you got to go do it somewhere else. So it's like, I mean, 60 seconds, that's pretty much all I could give the guy. I think it's good advice, though.
No, it's good. Environment's everything.
Yeah.
Now, why'd you choose the Lambo?
I chose the Lambo for a variety of different reasons. Number one, well, I went with the Urus because it's the tax write-off, too. In hindsight, I kind of regret getting the Urus. I actually wish I got an Aventador, honestly. I'd get more hype looking at the Aventadors.
But that doesn't have the Section 179.
Yeah.
The 6,000-pound curb weight.
Yeah, but honestly, in hindsight, driving the Urus now, I'm like, I don't care. Like, I would have rather paid extra. So, I mean, the Urus is dope, but it's not, for me personally, it doesn't get me hype like something that like, I think the Aventador looks like fucking Batman's type car, like a black matte matte black Aventador. Like that shit's really hot. I think at some point I'm gonna switch it out.
But what made you want to get like a supercar? Was it before that were you just not driving here, just Ubering? Or
Yeah,
what?
I went from a Honda Civic to a Lambo.
Nice. Nice.
But my Honda Civic's in New Jersey.
Okay.
My ex has the Honda Civic.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know, man. Like, I guess when I went to the dealership, I sat in a Ferrari too. I thought the Ferrari was dope. The numbers just made more sense for the Urus.
But what made you want to go from a Civic to a Ferrari Lambo?
I mean, I've been driving a Civic for 10 years. I could have leveled up my car way earlier. The company's been doing, good money for the last 3-4 years. So I always could have made the move. It didn't make sense to do it in New Jersey because all the fucking potholes and winter. And,
Yeah.
I wasn't going to do any of that. So I guess now that I'm out here, to me, it made sense. It was either Lambo or Ferrari. And then I just wanted to go with Lambo. And honestly, in hindsight, I'm not fully happy with. I think the Urus is hot, but I think there's a better car for me and my personality out there.
Aventador, matte black.
Matte black Aventador, yeah.
The Batmobile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I'm not gonna impulsively just switch it right now, but probably at some point you'll see me pull up in that, and then you'll know.
Okay, I'll keep my eye out. The blue Lambo's sick though. I saw it does look good.
Yeah, the baby blue, or whatever color that is. Yeah.
You don't know what that was called?
I don't know. It's blue Urus.
Blue Urus. Yeah. It's a little bit darker than a baby blue. It's like halfway from navy to baby blue, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know the name, but yeah.
It looks good though.
Yeah, what are you driving?
We just moved back, so we sold the car in Spain, and here we got a Porsche Taycan GTS and a BMW X5M competition. So we got the small sports car Porsche, and then the big. It also gets the Section 179 tax write-off BMW.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice, dude. What about you, dude? Like for your relationship, family, what's your perspective on? Are you trying to have kids? Are you thinking about that kind of stuff? Are you?
Yeah, kids are around the corner for us. Yeah,
okay, so you had a discussion about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
awesome. Well, actually, talk to me about that because I'm curious. Like, what was your perspective? You've been in a relationship 7 years. Was it always like from the jump you knew you wanted to do it? Is it something your perspective changed on 3-4 years in?
I've always known that I want to have kids and I want to be married.
Yeah.
But I don't think until maybe last year did I feel like I want to have kids soon. You know what I mean? It was always like that's like the end game is nice. I want to have a family.
Yeah.
Raise a nice family. But then, I mean, it is kind of like it's similar with marriage, right? Like the first 4 years of, well, I guess I got engaged at 3 years, but then we didn't get married till the 5 or 6 year mark because it was around COVID. So the wedding got put off for a while. Mm-hmm. But
was it like your business hit some level of like stability, or was it like you felt some level
in terms of the kids, or
more? Yeah, I was talking more about the kids.
The kids, not the marriage as much. That's definitely part of it, right? That's definitely part of it where you're at a point like, hey, I've had sustained like business growth above a certain level where like kids are not gonna really make any impact financially, right? I mean, I don't a very minimal impact financially. It's not going to be a point of stress. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it. Because then once you're at that point, you don't have that reason not to do it anymore. Yeah. And then otherwise, it's the other reason not to do it is like, I feel like it's, I'm giving up like some level of freedom. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like there's like chapters to life. I lived the single life for a while, the single lonely life for a while, then the single player life for a while. Then I had a few relationships. The third relationship's Julia, who I'm with now. Mm-hmm. And then we had a really fulfilling, up until now, these 7 years of me and her dating and traveling a lot, moving, building houses near parts of the world. Like it's been an adventure. And it feels like it just kind of feels like I'm ready for that next chapter. Yeah, and I don't want to be an old man dad either. I want to be like a younger dad who's healthy as my kids fully grow up. Not to like put pressure on you because we are the same age. Yeah. But I mean, I think it's not something I want to put off for like 10 more years. I guess I'd say I want it to be. If I'm, I think that's
pretty late too, personally. Like in the 40s, like.
Yeah, it's not that you're gonna be like. If you're working out, maybe taking TRT, like you should still be like.
I got questions about TRT too, by the
way. We can talk about those after. I mean, unless you want, we can talk about it on the pod. We can talk about that after the pod. I've just done so many videos on TRT. Okay. But, yeah, man, the kids was a slow realization. Where now I'm genuinely excited to have 2-3 kids, and like that'll be a different phase. Yeah.
Like so, it was more just like you. you feel fulfilled on these other areas that I guess were.
Yeah, I still want to keep growing the businesses. Like that's just like a constant like outlet for growth.
Yeah.
It's not even about the money so much at some point, right? It's more about like how can we just like reach more people and like it's just a challenge in itself. Like how do we grow the businesses? So I think having the full like stability there, it allowed me maybe to have like the opening to have the natural like desire to want to have kids. You know, I really feel like it has been like kind of a. I mean, obviously, humans have. That's the one thing human societies have done since the beginning of time to now, right? We've procreated.
Of course,
we've had kids.
Yeah.
So I think it is an innate, natural, biological drive that we have, and I think I'm feeling it now, and I'm like, I'm ready. Let's do it.
So you've interviewed some of these other dudes that are like not necessarily in these monogamous or even have monogamous viewpoints. Like I haven't watched all of these interviews, but what is their perspective on it? Like, do they want to have kids where it's just like the girl raises the kid and then they're kind of like disconnected doing their own thing?
So,
because I feel like that's a whole nother element that like once you start to bring into the play, it's like
I think a lot of these guys want to have kids with different women, and like I can financially support them,
right?
So like the kids can have a good life, and I'll like be as present as I can be in these different kids' life, which. And the argument that's been made to me a couple times is like, well, like the average dad now is kind of like a deadbeat. He's like an alcoholic. Like he's like not good for his kid's life. And I can financially provide for all these kids. So like that's like doing better than that. But my counter argument back is always, okay, well, like you're comparing it to like, you're comparing like what you want to do.
Congrats that you're one-upping the deadbeat dad, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's kind of been my counter argument back. But like, wouldn't it be more optimal for the kids to have like a stable mom and a dad, and the dad's like around? Like, yes, I still believe in traditional gender roles. And
what's the rebuttal to that though?
To what I never got a good one.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, just that that's kind of what they want to do, and they still think they can provide for their kids, and always give them FaceTime calls, be there for the big events.
I feel like that's.
But I do feel like, and I mean, I know you lost your father, which I've close families also lost. Like my closest cousins are like my brothers; they lost their father growing up, and I can't imagine what that's like. But I just want to be like pretty. My wife will have that traditional gender role of like being like the caregiver and raising the kids.
Yeah.
But I still want to be. I want to see them every day.
Right.
Even if I'm grinding, I still want to like see them every day and be able to like play sports with them growing up, and like dude. That to me, that's important.
Yeah, I think if you're not in a position to do those things, like it sounds like you're in a position where it's still more egotistical, self-centered. In which case, if that's the life you want to live, I just don't think you're in a position to really have the kid, or you should be considering having kids at that time, right? Like that's why I was asking when did you feel ready to have kids? Because I do feel like bringing in a child is going to require at least a decent amount of your time and attention, right? So you have
to be ready a little bit to move into a selfless chapter of life, which is hard, especially for guys like us who've, by definition, had to be very selfish with our time to build what we've built. Mm-hmm. And it gets to a point where it's like, yes, the business will still be a priority, but they'll be that is scary too, because right now I balance the businesses with like the romantic life with my wife, and then now it's a kid also. Like I don't want to give up the romantic life with my wife, and I've seen a lot of research that like it's actually the most important thing for parents is to focus on having a loving relationship together, because that's what kids learn from. And a lot of parents they like their relationship takes the backseat. It's like, no, it's about the kids, but then like, okay, yeah, you're there for the kids, but they're seeing you guys have a piece of shit relationship growing up, and that's. I mean, I think what most people grow up with, unfortunately. Yeah. And that's not ideal. So that's going to be that's the next chapter, and that's going to be the next challenge, right? I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I haven't gotten here from hiding from challenges, so that'll be the next one.
Yeah. That's exciting, dude. Honestly.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, there's so much to say. It just depends on what direction I want to go with it. I was just curious, really, what your perspective was on kids when you made that decision that like you want to move in that direction. Because I just feel like some of these other influencers that, again, convey a certain lifestyle, that are preaching to so many men this lifestyle, not realizing how influential they are to a lot of these dudes. They're just not being transparent about what's going on or what's going to happen when these guys get into that position, right? So it's like to me it's a massive injustice of like guiding somebody into a direction without actually understanding like where you're sending these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, like, I don't know what it's gonna be like to be a father, but I'm excited to figure it out.
Yeah, dude.
Cool.
Keep me posted, bro. I'm gonna be learning from you. I think you're ahead of me on the timeline, but
no, you got. Hey, I'm there as a resource. All the mistakes I make, I'll let you know.
Cool. Okay.
Cool.
Sounds good, brother.
Well, anything before we wrap up? Anything? Obviously, I'll link your Instagram and YouTube below. I'd highly recommend you guys check out Kyle's YouTube videos.
Coach Kyle,
if you're working to
IG,
level up.
Kyle Froonjian.
Anything else you want to mention? Anything else you got going on?
Dude, there was a lot in this talk. Honestly, I'm glad we got this out there, but I mean, I don't even know how to wrap this up. I guess like as a dude, how do I close this out? I mean, dude, there's too much. I guess. Yeah, just link the YouTube shit, bro. That's it.
I'll link the YouTube.
But yeah, YouTube Coach Kyle, IG Kyle Froonjian. You guys check me out if you want more content.
Appreciate you, bro.
My man.
One more. Another clean one to finish it off.
What up? All right, my dude.
Done.